Okay, so today we're going to be talking about McCarthyism and the start of the Cold War. McCarthyism was a time or a term that's used for during the beginning of the Cold War when there was a lot of fear and anxiety in the United States. It was a time when people were truly worried that the communists or the Russians were going to come into our country and infiltrate, and they did, and it truly did happen. So what I want to do now, though, to get some background knowledge and basic knowledge, I want to take some time, pair you into groups, so when I count off, just say a number, okay?
1, 2, 3.
That's a group.
1, 2, 3.
Group. Group. 1, 2. Group. 1, 2, 3. Group. So, what's going to happen is, the letters on the board, anything that has to do with the Cold War, McCarthyism, anything with this time frame, I want you to just think of anything that starts with an A, B, C, D, all the way to Z. I'm going to give you 5 minutes. You don't have to, not everybody has to write. You can all write on one paper. That's fine. You can have one person who's just the writer and the rest are talkers. This is just to get your minds going and getting back into the prior knowledge that you guys have. All right? Any questions before we start? Wow, you guys are silent. Okay. All right. So on your marks, get set, go.
Russia. Oh, that's a good one. I didn't think of that one. But Russia. Japan.
You don't need more than one word per letter.
You got it? All right. Let's see what it is. Nazi. Yeah. Wasn't there
I like the collaboration.
That's a good question.
So the idea of the alphabet game is to get you guys thinking collaboratively and getting your prior knowledge based into this.
Electricity.
And we need one word for it.
Because Asian.
I like the collaboration, guys. Keep it up.
Here, you want to write it? The rest of ours.
Yes, you can use anything that your mind can justify to go with the Cold War, McCarthyism, or communism, or anything like that. Throw it in there. I don't care what it is. I just want you guys to show me you know something, so I know where to go from here.
Okay, there we go.
Yes.
What else do we think of it? Oh.
The 1960s. Well, no, I lied. Not the 1960s. It was like 1947 to like 1954 in that time frame. I don't know why I said the 19th. I think it's because I'm in the 1960s in my other history class right now. It threw me off a little bit. 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
Yeah, you're writing really slow. Yes. Russian. Okay, let's go for it.
I don't know.
Okay, let's go.
Just remember, if I ask you to justify it and give me an answer, make sure you can justify it.
Right there.
I'm not answering anything. Nope.
I'm not gonna know. Okay. Yep.
Remember, this is after World War I and after World War II. Just so you remember that. This is like 1947 to like 1955-ish.
Alright, winners. We could do sexism. Oh yeah, that's a good one. We could do homophobia. There's already different.
1 minute.
Okay, I'm gonna finish our letter. Yeah.
Hey, right.
phone.
You only need Q and X. Q and X. But this is like the hardest one. I doubt there's anything for the and Z.
Good job, guys.
After? Yeah.
Ooh, wow. That's nice, guys.
U.
Start wrapping it up. You got probably 30 seconds left.
Onion. No, Jess. I said union. I was just kidding.
Yes, you're a genius.
10,
We're done.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pens down. So, what's going to happen now is I'm going to say A through C. Ask who has the ones A through C. Put your hand up if you do. Like, oh, not yet. I like the participation though. But I'll call on you when you'll say it. If you don't have an answer for one of the letters, you should write it down. It's good to then gain a little bit more knowledge on it. So when I ask you though, if I ask you to justify it, I hope you're ready to justify it because that's a whole big part of it. A through C, who's got them? Bryce.
Army, bombs, and cars.
Army, bombs. My question is, bombs. What does bombs have to do with Cold War?
I mean, it blows stuff up.
For sure. But if you guys would remember, or I guess we'll get into it more, the Cold War was Cold War. And by cold, I mean there was no non-aggression. So that's why it's a hot war zone, is a war zone where there's a lot of combat. But I like it. I like the idea. Okay, who has DEF? Logan?
Dictatorship, execution, and federal states.
Dictatorship, execution. Now, by execution, do you mean like execution of people, or do you mean like execution of plans and strategies, or both? Gotcha. And then F was
Federal state.
nice. All right. GHI.
We had gas chambers, Hitler, and innocents.
Okay. Hitler was dead by this time.
But like his kind of like memory.
Okay. I'll take it, but Hitler was more of a fascist regime, whereas the Cold War was more communist. So, yeah, Hitler can maybe fall into that. And what was the other one? Innocence. Yeah, Mia. Sure. JKL. Ethan, Alan, and Adam.
Jail, kill, and lies.
Jail, kill, and lies. Actually, those all work fairly well. M and O. This group over here, Logan, Mia, and Emily.
Media. Nazi. And orders.
Okay. PQR. All right, give me your PNR.
Prison. Pure poison.
Poison.
Prison.
Prison.
And then Russia.
Now be careful with that, because they weren't Russia yet, but they became Russia. Do you have a Q?
Yeah, quitters.
I'll put it up there. Is there a reason you put quitters, or did you just not be able to find a Q and decided quitters is the closest thing you can get?
If people wanted, they probably quit or Everyone, every letter.
Okay. STU.
Starvation, terror.
Nice. Anybody get a U? VWX? VWX. I'll come back to you guys again.
B was veterans.
Yeah.
W war. We're going back.
YZ. All right.
Why is Yugoslavia? You.
No.
No.
There's no.
That was a G.
YUGM.
Oh, YUGM.
Yeah.
Okay. And did you have a Z or no? No. So, do you have a Z? Throw it at me if you got it. I don't care what it is. Let me Zoo. All right.
I do believe they had zoos.
I'm sure there were zoos in the 1950s.
As
You
well
are
as
correct.
xylophones.
Okay, but that. Okay. So the idea is to get you guys to relax and understand that you guys do know a little bit about this, whether or not you know a lot about it. You know little tidbits and you know things here or there. So this is a way to base that prior knowledge. So now, what we're going to do is we're going to play, oh, let me log back on here. We're going to do an activity called the red dot game. And the dot activity why is this not moving? So, you will participate in an activity in which you will form groups based on your secret identities. You will each receive a piece of paper. On that piece of paper will either be blank or it'll have a dot drawn on it. There are fewer dots than there are blank pieces of paper. When you receive your piece of paper, you must secretly look at it, put it in your pocket, and not show it to anybody. Nobody can know what you are until after the game. The goal of the activity is to form as large a group as possible of non-dot members. Points. We'll do this twice. The largest group of non-dot students will win points. The whole group will lose if there is one dot member in your group. So that whole group loses, except the dot members will win points for being the only dot in a group. So not only as a spy are you against everybody else, you're also kind of against your teammates that are also spies. So this is a game. Actually, I'm not even going to explain the point of the game because I'd like to get to that a little later. So, since everyone in the class will deny a dot, you must look for any indication of suspicion. If you suspect someone has a dot, you should say out loud, "Bob's a dot." If you are a dot, then you must bluff to convince others you're not a dot. Pretty simple. You guys have any questions? Jess?
Not about the game, but this might be totally wrong, but does this have like something to do with like the X, Y, and Z affair? Or was that before the Cold War? You know what I'm talking about?
No, you got me there.
Remember the X, Y, and Z?
When the French came in and they
When
stepped in
the-
there.
before.
Yeah, before.
Yeah, that was.
The French aren't really involved in this. So.
Yeah.
I'm just.
That's okay. So on go, you're gonna have 5 minutes to talk. You're gonna get up and move around and talk. Once I turn those lights off, though, you gotta freeze in place, and whoever you're next to, that's your group. Sorry about it. Whether or not you want to be with them or not, that's your group. So, Emily. Lock that way. You guys can start making like that line.
Chairs get over.
I know. Check both sides. If you got a dot, it's gonna be kind of small, so make sure, because I don't want anyone else to notice it. Kind of small, so make sure. I don't want anyone else to see it. Bryce, come here. Bryce, come here. Bryce. Yeah.
Bryce has
No, he really doesn't.
I don't trust him.
So here, come actually, no, he really doesn't. So here, come actually. That doesn't look bad.
Now versus now.
Okay. Okay. So, when I say go, start talking. Find who they are. On your mark, get set. On your mark, go!
Howard is running away from me. I've got to go. Get away from me.
Yeah, just play too cool. Alright, let's get away from her. She's not. I'm a dog? You're not already? Alright. Okay.
Why am I the dog? Why is the one the dog?
I might be a dog.
I don't trust you.
There has to be more than one person
I actually don't have a dog.
Otherwise, you're not a group. I know you learned that much of that.
I don't actually have a dog this time.
So she can spy on us. We're not doing this.
Alright,
And they're just fine.
I don't trust anyone who's gonna say my name.
Stay away.
Yeah, they just like.
Don't touch my stuff.
Get away.
By the way, in case you're wondering, hello, in case you're pause for 2 seconds, in case you're wondering, the dots are not red. Okay, so if you're looking for a red dot, it's not there. No, not yet. There's a dot, but it's not going to be red. Like I said, it's going to be hard to see. So maybe you all need to recheck your pieces of paper real quick. It's not a white dot, it's going to be in pencil. It's very, very small. Like, no, that big. It looks like a little tick mark. So, did that change anybody's perspective?
Let's not add dots to paper.
Hey, don't add no dots.
I trust you.
Hey! Relax. Bring it down just a little bit. Now, what's going to happen is I'm going to go group by group. Starting with this group here. He's in your group. Sorry about you. Just touching you. Everybody in this group, pull out your paper.
Wait, I want this.
No dot.
Do you see this? Oh my god.
No dot. Dot. So you got 2 spies. No points for anybody in this group. Yes, he is. He's next to you. No dot. No dot.
Wait, Logan has a dot.
I'll have one.
Dot.
I knew it.
No dot. No dot. Dot.
Oh, I don't
No, I hate you guys.
You guys should have both listened to me.
Dot. 3 spies. That whole group. No points.
I hate you so much.
No dot. No dot. No dot. No dot. You guys won the first round. Now, listen, pass me back the pieces of paper. We're going to do it one more time.
I knew you had a dot. It's really obvious.
I knew Adam had a dot. I knew Anna had a dot. I knew Amber had a dot. I was worried about pointing at the ceiling. I figured out what the spy is. Isn't that pointing up? I thought you were. Stop that. Wait, is it now pointing up? This is a professional fight. Is it now pointing up? Aren't you like a trained black belt or something? Oh yeah, we were fighting one time.
Hey, volume down. Thank you. Now, we do it again. Now that you guys know what the dots look like, it should be a little easier to begin with. So, start on over.
I still want it.
Yo. I'm surprised you're gonna get another dot.
I don't want
Yeah, it's not like you can see the dot from that far
I feel
away.
like we're at church.
Like I'm giving you communion.
Do you very often like religiously avoid people at church?
Do I?
Yeah.
I don't really go to church, so.
Here. Hold on.
I don't even want to talk to you right now.
On your marks. Get set. Go. This time it'll be 3 minutes, so get to finding out quicker.
Oh,
I promise.
you have 5?
No, you have 3 now.
Okay, it's 105.
I know, I got the time right there. Appreciate it, though. You guys really make one. Alright. Okay, so you're openly saying you're a spy. Okay. Interesting tactic.
No, she's doing backwards therapy right over here.
Reverse psychology.
Reverse psychology. Okay. She has a dot to make us feel better. She doesn't have a dot, but she really does have a dot.
So the dot's the dot and the dot?
Yeah.
Dot.
She's a dot. I don't trust her. If someone approaches me, they're definitely a dot. Andrea's a dot. You're a dot.
So who's a dot in this group? Let's be real.
Alan.
I don't trust Adam, and I don't trust.
Alan.
Is it?
Alan.
I don't know.
Next to me, not. He's Alan. He's running around. Mexican flag. Right? I don't have one.
You can't be in a group by yourself. Oh, get on in. Hey, there's no need to be aggressive, alright?
You following us?
Alan, if they don't want you, go with somebody else, man. Feel appreciated in life.
Get out of here, Alan.
There's a lot of people in this room that'll appreciate you.
I had to think
No, you're not getting it. Get away. Get away.
Pause! Relax. Volume back down, please. Alan, I saw you. You're with the other group. Small group, go first.
Dot.
2 dots. All right. No group. No dots?
We're good.
So far, you're winning.
You pull a
This is the biggest group, so let's see what happens here. No dot.
No dot.
No dot, no dot, no dot.
Oh my God!
Relax. No points for anybody there. No dot. Dot. No dot. Grant got points, so technically Grant has won this whole activity because he got points twice. You guys came in second. Alright, so move back to your seats. Get out a piece of paper and a pencil. Remember, transitions can be a little bit more quiet.
I knew you had to know.
Emma, you have such bad judgment. Ended up being a dot. And you were like, oh, Andrea's definitely not a dot.
Hey, okay, ready? So now I'm going to explain what's going to happen next. Now what we're going to do is do an activity called Think, Pair, Share. So what's going to happen is you're going to take 2-3 minutes, think about this activity, what it has to do with the Cold War, what it has to do with espionage, what it has to do with communism, what it has to do with anything that has to do with this time period. You're going to write about it. You don't have to write a lot, just write enough so that when you have to talk to your partner, you can share. Then, after you two share together, I'm then going to go and ask people to share what their groups say. Not every group's going to share, just because we don't have time. But, if I call on you, you'd be ready to share. So, alright, does everybody have a piece of paper and something to write with? You need paper? You have a piece of paper?
Hey, it's my paper.
Relax, guys. We got more paper. Here.
We got one.
Anybody else need paper? Okay. So, ready? Think. This think time is right time. So you think, you put down your thoughts on it. Be a little bit critical with your thoughts. Add a little bit more substance to it. You can use some of the words we use from the alphabet soup. That would always be great too. Really just take this time to jot down what you got to say and what you think about the game and like what it could either symbolize or what it represents or what it has to do with or anything along those lines. I'm going to give it until 1:13 or 1:14 to think. You two, and well, you three. What's going to happen is you're going to take a minute each to share what you wrote down and what your thoughts are. Take that time to really talk and listen. It's 1 minute for each person. So, should be ample time. This group may be a little bit more difficult. We'll give you an extra minute since you have 3 people. After we do that, you're all then going to share out loud. Depending on who I call on, I'm going to ask you guys to raise your hand. So for now, for the next minute, partner A, which is the first person in your group, so the first person pointing to the left. So Emily, Mia, Anna, Tori, Josh, David, Adam. You guys are going to share first, all right? Your marks, get set, go.
So I wrote just like general things like spies is like espionage, which is like betrayal and lies is kind of gaining trust, losing trust. Like insight.
I'll get it.
Okay, switch partners. Mia, if you want to join up and listen to that, feel free.
We already go back and forth.
Okay.
She said mine's pretty intense. I don't know how much.
1 second.
Like Adam.
Why would I be talking about that? That's what you said. You guys wanted yes. Talk about the Cold War, please.
I did, and you wouldn't stop saying it. What do you think about like my first year?
I think a lot
Like the way you were reacting to when I asked you. Okay, because a lot of people like they like assume like because personality like they would lie to you.
No, I didn't make up personality.
You guys all shared? Okay, so let's pull it back in.
Everyone else think.
That was the part of the think pair. That was the pair part. Now we're going to share out loud. This is where I would maybe, jot down some things if you didn't necessarily think of it, just so you have a little bit more contextual evidence to back up your thoughts. So, anybody want to actually share out loud? I'm going to go Mia, Emily, Tori, Andrea, Ethan. Go.
All right.
Take it away.
So I said, this game definitely made me lose confidence and trust in my friends. They manipulated me just like people in Goose Probably did back then. Now I know how they feel. And now I realize that people closest to me, like Andrea, are liars. I can't trust them.
Okay. Emily?
The game showed us that you never know like who to trust, even if like they're really close to you, and there were definitely a lot of lies in it, and that it can't only just hurt like your group, it can also hurt you.
Okay, I think it's Tori.
Okay, so I pretty much said how like this game represented how back then nobody trusted each other, but the people who did trust each other, they kind of, one of them, like they'd either be okay or someone would be lying to get information, or someone who was innocent wouldn't necessarily be included in their trust group.
Okay, Andrea.
So like similar to that, I wrote like innocent people could get killed and guilty people could get trusted.
Interesting. Okay, Ethan.
Kind of like that, but I mean, people really did just take advantage of others if they knew they didn't have a dot, or just because of that, and they tried to make themselves unsuspecting by putting the blame on someone else, like Adam, Bryce. It's always Bryce, but I mean, that wasn't Adam, that was pretty much everyone. And friends worked with friends to try to find out who was who. They didn't really work outside their friend group most of the time to find out.
Those are two really good points.
Yeah, people just blamed others immediately.
Okay.
Based off of the personality.
Anybody over there have anything to say about the game? Adam?
Even if you hadn't looked at your paper, it would have been smarter to not look at your paper. Because you're still trying to just find a not spy, which you would have wanted to do either way.
So really good. Actually, that's a really strategic point.
I mean, you shouldn't have.
Yeah, that's really cool. Okay, so oh, it went off again. You know what? I'm just gonna go off my head for now. So the point of the game really was to personify for you what it was like to live during this time, during the Red Scare. It was a time when we actually, a funny thing is when we made the atomic bomb, before we launched it and before we used it, the Russians knew basically everything about it because they had spies inside of the American government. There was legitimate people who were taking our intelligence and using it against us. Communism was a very big and scary thing for us at that time because communism's whole thought was we are the only thing that can be there. We are the only ideological concept of government and economics that'll work, and anything else needs to be put out. And that's something that scared us. And a guy named Joseph McCarthy came along. Joseph McCarthy was a senator, and he wanted to get reelected. So he started the idea of McCarthyism, which is he'll blacklist you if he thinks that you are a spy. So people, just like you all were doing now, would be in public, and you'd be frightened that you don't know if the person next to you is a spy or not. And if they say something that necessarily doesn't agree with you, they'll turn around and say, oh, you're a spy. So anybody who disagreed with Joseph McCarthy just got told, you're a spy. Oh, he's doing that because he's a commie. He's a communist. He's part of the Reds. He's part of the Red. He's a terrible person. She's a terrible person. I mean, and it really went out against actors at this time too. Anybody that was in Hollywood got hit hard. If your movie just didn't portray something that wasn't liked, you got put on a blacklist and you weren't really used for anything. And there came these hearings. So Joseph McCarthy would have these hearings, and it would be in front of the court system, and he would basically take you in there and say, well, this is my evidence for why he's a communist. And for all intents and purposes, I could just say he's a communist, or I'm a communist, and then fake sign somebody's name. I mean, there was no real evidence behind a lot of what McCarthy said. Now, was McCarthy right? Were there a lot of spies? Yeah, there was a good amount of espionage going on. But the idea is that I wanted you guys to feel, because like you guys clearly stated that you couldn't trust anybody. You felt almost an angst that you could trust maybe one or two friends, but other than that, you weren't willing to branch out and be like, oh, I'll take you in. And if somebody was like, oh yeah, I'll take you in, 9 times out of 10 you thought they were a spy. Because why are you willingly taking me into your group and letting me know your stuff unless you're a spy and you secretly want to know all my stuff? And there was a lot of mind games going on. And what Ethan said about the whole trust aspect and the idea that you threw other people under the bus, that's what happened. I mean, think about it. If you got put on trial for saying you're a communist, what's the first thing you're going to do?
Blame it on someone else.
Blame it on somebody else, because if the eyes aren't on you, that's fine. That's all that matters. So, do you guys feel like you got a decent amount out of the understanding of what McCarthyism and what the feeling was at this time? Okay. Now, what we're going to do is you're going to pull out another piece of paper. You can use the same one if you want, but you're going to turn this one into me. What this is going to be is this is going to be an exit ticket. So in order to leave, you have to give me this paper with the answer to it. I'm going to say the question. Logan, would you like to write for me?
Sure.
Thank you. She's going to write on the board only because I know I have trouble reading my own handwriting when I write on the board sometimes, so she has better handwriting. I'll let her do it. I'm going to read the question first. You don't have to write it all right now, but the question so you guys can start. Oh, wait, hold on. Put everything away from today. And so unless it's the paper you're going to use, like, you know what I mean? So unless it's the paper you're going to use to write on, put it away.
Can I use this? It just has
Yeah, that's fine. As long as it doesn't have any of the factual stuff that we talked about or any of the idea of what McCarthy, who McCarthy was and things like that, any notes that you took. Oh. The question is, what should our country's leaders be more focused on protecting? Security of the nation or freedom of the nation's people? Should this change? Should it remain the same? What should our country's leaders be more focused on protecting? Security of the nation or freedom of the nation's people? Should this change? Should it remain the same? And how does this relate to McCarthyism? I'll say it one more time so you can get the full question. What should our country's leaders be more focused on protecting? Security of the nation or freedom of the nation's people? Should this change? Should it remain the same? And how does this relate to the topic of McCarthyism?